Hello, and welcome to the RV Advisors Podcast. I am your host, Kathy Conrad. I have been enjoying the RV lifestyle for 5 years, and I love helping new RVers realize their RV dreams. This podcast is about RV education, resources, adventures, and the amazing people who love RVing. It is also about discovering the freedom RVers experience, the connection with nature we are all so grateful for, and how RVing enriches our lives. On this podcast, you can expect us to talk about all things RV, including the good stuff, the challenging stuff, and everything in between. So join us weekly and enjoy the lineup of guests we have in store for you. Welcome back to the podcast, All Things RV. I'm Kathy, your host, and I am so excited today because I have a very special guest that I'm very excited to talk to today. I have Patrick Stiltner here of the RV Academy, and Patrick and his wife are dear friends of ours. And he was actually the inspector that inspected our rig before we bought it, which I'm so glad we did that. And he was so thorough with his huge 102-page report and all kinds of information and areas that may have needed a little work. And then we were so impressed with Patrick that we signed up for his boot camp. And that was so valuable. And, I had done a lot of research, but going to his boot camp was just really, I think, had a wonderful impact on our RV experience starting out. So I'm so thankful to Patrick for that. And also how fitting it is, my first guest is the person who kind of inspired me to how important it is to be educated when you're RVing. So Patrick, welcome. Thanks for coming. I'm excited that you're here.
And thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's really nice to see a customer turn friend, and a lot of them do with me, and just to see you excel by leaps and bounds. So good for you. We were talking off camera right before we started the podcast, and it's really enjoyable just to see where you've gone in such a small time frame. So good for you. So,
Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm genuinely pleased to be here.
Good. Well, I'm excited to have you, and thank you. Thanks for being such a great inspiration and helping us to get our RV journey off to a great start, which is what I hope to do for other people as well. So you were a great example for that.
Well, thank you.
I know you've been an RV enthusiast for most of your adult life. So share with us. Tell us a little bit about your journey as an RVer.
As a kid, I never got the chance to go camping. I never went in an RV. Those were RVs where the Winnebagos had just come out, and they weren't. They were for people who were well off and had the ability to afford them. And I really never gave it a thought until one day a buddy of mine says, and by this time I'm 22, because my only vacation was going to my grandparents' house for 10 days during the summer. So there and back in 10 days. I was about 20, 21, 22 years old, and a buddy of mine says, "Hey, I'm selling my travel trailer." And I'm like, I'm going to buy that travel trailer. I'm going to go have some fun. Didn't have the first clue about what it was all about. And it was a rough road, and I had to figure things out. It was a 1978 Wilderness travel trailer bunkhouse model, slick sides, meaning that it had no slides and no jacks. So you basically had to do everything manually. Well, since that time, I'm on RV number 6. I think I have 5 or 6. And
Wow.
And I've owned everything from boats to jet skis to and every class. I've not owned a class B. They don't check all my boxes for me, but I've owned diesel pushers, gassers, and I sold my diesel pusher last year and went back to a fifth wheel. So here I am in a fifth wheel. And yeah, and I'm just out there enjoying every possible moment that I can on the road and making some type of experience for ourselves. It's been a lot. It's been a lot of fun, and I've been doing it since I was 21, 22 years old. So I'm 59 now. So yeah, it's been a while. So
Wow. That's so awesome. I love that you've tried them all out just about, you know.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
great.
yeah.
That's great. And so then what compelled you to become a certified inspector and RV technician?
Well, I retired when I was 50. I was in law enforcement, and I retired, and I needed something to do. So I had just bought, I think, my diesel pusher at the time, and I didn't have a whole lot of experiences with jacks and slides and things like that. Minimal experience with them. But at any rate, so I just decided that this is something. First off, I need to learn it, and so I'm very regimented as far as learning and getting those learning disciplines down. And so yeah, so then I just started to dabble in it a little bit and figure things out. And YouTube really wasn't that helpful. YouTube wasn't. Um, it was still in its infancy, for lack of a better term, as in the RV world, as far as that's concerned. And so I just started to figure things out, and I read a lot of manuals. Here in my office, I've got books and books and books, and most of them are electronic now. But yeah, I did a lot, and then one of the things, the straw that broke the camel's back, was my very first maintenance bill. My diesel pusher came out of the shop, and it was a $2,000 bill, and this was just preventative maintenance. And one of the things that, as a veteran, one of the things in the military you're always taught is preventative maintenance. Your vehicles, your
Mhm.
weapons, everything that you do is preventative maintenance. So I had that concept of what I was going to be doing and how I was going to do it. And I just started keeping a log of everything that I did, and the date and time, if there's mileage was concerned, and so on and so forth. But it was that very first maintenance bill when they passed me the invoice over, and they said, we need $2,000, and I'm like, it was a little bit of a sticker shock to me. And then
Yeah.
so I brought the rig home and put it in storage, and came home and thought about it. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that again ever. And so, and the only difference is that I only had the mechanical side of it, the diesel engine and the drivetrain and things like that, because I'm not a diesel mechanic. So I decided I'm going to let the local Freightliner shop take care of that for me, and I'll do everything else. And it went from there. 2018, I went to inspector school, and I've been doing pre-purchase inspections since then, since July of 2018. And then in 2021, I went back to school for 6 weeks, and I became a certified RV repair technician. So, and with that, most of my work, and believe it or not, it's a lot of it's about 50-50 inspections and RV repairs. But I'm mobile, so if I can't get it on my truck, then I don't do it. And I basically do rescue and maintenance. I get the slides in, the jacks up, and get you down the road to a repair shop,
Mhm.
or I'll maintenance your air conditioner or your furnace or things like that. And right now we're coming out of furnace season, going right into air conditioning season.
Yeah.
So yeah. So
Wow. That's great. That's
mhm.
so great.
Yeah.
I know that it was just great to have you inspect our rig, the peace of mind,
Hmm.
and to learn about doing some maintenance on our own through the boot camp was really great.
Yeah.
Really great.
Yep.
So tell me about your philosophy of doing business and customer service. What's worked for you?
Well, so my philosophy is honesty. I'm a mom and pop shop. I work by myself. I'm a home based business. I'm retired. I work when I want to, and I don't when I don't work when I don't want to. And but I at the same time I have a hard time saying no a lot of times. So my business philosophy is I treat people. I'm old school. which that's really, really difficult to say these days. Old school meaning that I'm honest, I have integrity and open lines of communication. The big part is that I actually answer the phone. I respond to, and I tell all of my customers, I answer to all phone calls and emails within 24 hours, or sometimes it's between 8 a.m., noon, and 5 p.m. unless I'm with customers and so on and so forth. That's at my earliest convenience. And I've actually talked myself out of a lot of business. People will call me up, and I'll just, and they'll explain the situation, and I'll get a feel for them, because it's an interview process for me. How can I help you? What it is that you need? And sometimes I just simply say, I'm not your guy. It's not going to work. But I don't leave them, out in the cold. I give them, whatever resources that I think that might be good for them, and in some cases a tree branch fell on the roof, and it did this. So I needed, it broke certain things. It came through the skylight. And they're like, we need you to come out and do an inspection. And I'm like, well, that's not what an inspection's for. What you need is an estimate of repairs so that you can make that insurance claim, or at least make that determination. Is your deductible is it going to be worth the insurance claim, or are you just going to pay out of pocket to have it fixed? A lot of people carry about $1,000 deductible on their rig. So, so at any rate, and then I'll diagnose, or I'll tell them things over the phone, or in all actuality, I'm an Android user. I don't use an Apple. So I use WhatsApp to do some video conferencing every once in a while. And I'm like, well, here, do this, and do this. And they're back in business, and that's could be the middle of their trip, or it could be the end of their trip. It's hard to say, but yeah. And then a lot of times I tell people, given the age of the rig, I got a call earlier today. I want you to go out and inspect a 1998. I'm like, well, hold on here just a second. With a 1998, there's a lot of factors that come into play, and an inspection may not be the best thing for you, because all of your appliances, unless it's been completely refurbished, is on borrowed time. So so I'm not your guy. So a refrigerator may work fine for me during inspection, but 5 minutes down the road, it's going to go kaput, and it's got to be replaced. So it's having that integrity, because I can always, do I need to sell an RV inspection, or do I need to sell myself? I choose not to. My reputation and integrity does it for me. So
yeah, I can vouch for that.
Yeah.
And I love your approach with the older rig. That's a
Mhm.
really good point,
Yes.
That's a really good point. And I can vouch for your integrity and for your responsiveness and for being honest. And I've called you many times since our
Yeah.
inspection, and you've always been there, and I've always really appreciated that about you, Patrick.
Good.
That's awesome.
I'm glad to hear.
Yeah. So, in my last podcast, I talked a bit about buying a used RV.
Mhm.
And a strategy and a process, which included getting professional inspection by an NRVIA certified inspector. And my focus was more on buying from an individual. So I was just curious what your thoughts are about buying used from a dealership, and how to go about getting it inspected in that situation. What have you encountered? Have you done that, and how have the dealerships responded?
I've been from one end of the spectrum to the other. I've had dealerships throw keys at me and say, here's the keys, you figure it out. And I've had others say, welcome, come on in, have a cup of coffee and a donut before you get started. Is there anything that we need? Is there anything that I can help you with as far as achieving, doing, what it is that you need to do? And then in some cases, I've had dealerships say flat out, no, we don't allow third-party inspectors on the lot. And so it's been from one end of the spectrum to the other. Anyone who's starting out, so it's fun, and it's exciting to look at brand new RVs, and you're all up in the moment, and you're up in the hype. And the dealerships and the salesmen, they have an objective, and that objective is to sell that unit and get it and get your keys in your hand, right? And a lot of times they'll say things that may or may not be in your best interest. So their job is to make money, to keep the lights on, and to get a paycheck. And I've actually had to turn people away. They say, well, the dealer said that this was okay to tow, and I'm like, you've got a subcompact, or you've got a compact SUV, and you want to pull a tandem axle trailer. So can you make an emergency stop? Can you make an emergency maneuver? Can you pull a hill? Because anyone in the RV world has seen those types of situations. I saw one earlier today, going up the hill, going up Interstate 80 out of Sacramento, and pulled over to the side of the road. Overheated, bad, probably blew a transmission at that point, but that's neither here nor there. They all have these quite unique methods in order to get your business. And some are laid back. The mom and pop shop dealerships are laid back, and others, the chain dealerships, they're a lot more aggressive, and they're going to do or say whatever they need to do to get you in that rig.
Yeah, I've recommended that people go in with a buying strategy.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
that they don't get plowed over by or sucked in or whatever.
Yeah.
It's really important.
I tell my customers, never buy on the same day. Go in, look at it, think about it, even go to a second dealership or another dealership that rather sells that same model, might be 100 miles away, but it might be worth the trip just to take a look. So, so
I kind of went over that in my first podcast about don't make this buying mistake, because I went against all the things that I normally set for myself. I don't know if you listened to it, but you'll have to listen to it.
Yeah, I know I did. And you were hungry and tired.
Don't go in hungry and tired.
Yeah.
It was an interesting experience for sure. So what do you tell your customer if the dealer says, no, you can't come on this lot? What do you tell your customer?
Well, actually, I let the customer do that, because I like the customer I like to shorten that line of communication. I like the customer to hear that from the dealership. Sorry, unfortunately, we don't allow third-party inspectors on the lot. And here in my area, there's only one or two. I let them, and then when they called me and are like, well, they said that this isn't going to, they're not going to allow that to happen. And I said, well, the writing's on the wall, but in this case, it's a big red flag if they don't let you, if they won't let a third party inspector on the lot. And I've got tough skin. So when they throw the keys at me and say, go at it, well then, okay. Or if you figure it out, well, you know what? That's what I get paid to do.
So you probably carry insurance. So you're covered if you go on somebody's lot. And so do you let them know that, hey, I have insurance? And even with that, sometimes they say no.
And I've had to appeal to general managers of dealerships saying, hey, I carry I think $1 million or $2 million worth of liability insurance. So it's a red flag when they don't want to do that. And then dealers, a lot of times they get crafty, and they'll say, they'll impose unrealistic requirements on the inspector, like, and not an insurance policy, but they want a bond. So there's a difference between a bond and an insurance policy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you have to rent the bay for the day. So they'll put me in a service bay and they're like, okay, this bay is going to cost $200 an hour. So, and I'm like, well, that's
seriously, you've had that?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
I've had it.
And it's just to discourage you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Basically,
and not
without saying no, squeeze you out.
Yeah, and not necessarily to me, because I mean, I'm unfortunately I'm going to have to pass that cost off to my customer, and then also they're also doing an inspector was here last month and fell off the roof. I'm like, well, I've got liability insurance, and here it is. Here's my business license. Here's my liability insurance, proof of insurance, and I carry extra copies, and I leave it on their desk. Here you go. Have a nice day, and then they'll come up with, well, we don't want you tearing anything apart, and I have very specific guidelines that I follow. And they said, well, so we're gonna have a technician shadow you for the day, and you have to pay our hourly rate of $185 an hour. So so it's rather so they some of them come up with these unique and and different ways of trying to keep an inspector off the lot. They're saying, well, we're not saying no, but it's going to cost you a lot of money if you want an inspection. So, and then the flip side to that is that one of the things that a customer will say, they're like, we're going to have a third party inspector come in, and the dealer will say, we've done our own inspection and we're satisfied that it's roadworthy and ready to go. You're wasting your money. And then after the fact, when I find a punch list full of things of discrepancies, then they like to attempt to discredit the inspector or discredit me or discredit the report. And I'm like, well, prove me wrong, because everything that I do is evidence-based. There's a picture followed by a description of what that picture is and how it's not right. And so I'm like, feel free to prove me wrong, because I will be the first to say, and I've done it several times, I'm sorry, I was wrong. And if I need to, I will send off a new report saying, oh, I didn't know. And I had that situation just yesterday. Something didn't look right. And I'm like, this is not right. And so I went ahead and wrote it up as not as a failure. And then it ate at me all night long. The first thing in the morning, I woke up and I called the manufacturer and I'm like, hey, listen, I've got privilege to technician lines. That's not customer service and general public. And I'm like, I've got a problem here. And I gave him the VIN number and we talked about it. And I'm like, this isn't right. And we're like, and the technician, they actually sent me to the electrical department. And he's like, yeah, he says during that model year, this is exactly what we did. And that is consistent. And that's what we did. And that's what's right. They said, we don't agree with it, but that's what's right. And we only did that for 4 years. And then we switched up and went a different route. And so that's why, and it was a very, it wasn't a very popular rig. It was a fifth wheel. It wasn't very popular, but and that's why they did what they did. So
interesting.
Yeah.
But that's nice. You have that communication line that you can do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
Yeah, it sure is.
So, anything else on that topic?
I get calls. Why should I have an inspection done on a new rig? I'm like, well, there's very good reasons. I have seen black tanks or waste tanks, black or gray, black being for solid waste, human waste, the toilet, and gray. And I've seen them plumb backwards. And in that same particular rig, I'm like, okay, well, they're plumb backwards because I was filling the toilet and the gray tank was coming up. And then it got even worse. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to go dump the tank. And I went to go hook up a sewer hose. There was no way to hook it up. So there's a rabbit. I call it the rabbit hole. You stick the hose up underneath from under the rig to where you can keep your bay door closed in your wet bay or where the valves are. There was no hole, and the coupler was that far off of the floor. There was no possible way to, and the coupler did not move. It was in place. And so there was no possible way to drain that tank whatsoever.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so, so I find just as things wrong. I probably find more wrong with new rigs than I do old rigs. So, so my target, and when people ask me, what should I do as far as a rig is concerned, I always say, if you're new to RVing, buy something within 1 to 2 years, gently used, because it's already been through the warranty process. That still doesn't excuse it, because it still as a used RV, it still needs to be inspected, because the owner of the rig, they may or may not have good practices in maintenance and tank management, and the list goes on and on and on. So so new or used, you should always get an inspection.
Yeah, I agree 100%. That's why I totally agree with you. So in a case like that, where they're plumbed backwards or no way to drain, I mean, that's not good. What if they already bought it and you discovered that? Say they're saying, well, how do we drain this? And you find out that you can't even drain it. What recourse do they have?
Oh,
Is
as
it,
soon
can it be, and if they're plumbed backwards, can
Mhm.
that be fixed?
Yes, it can be. The dealer's not going to like it. If it's on a dealership, they're not going to like it because they basically have to disassemble the majority of the plumbing from basically the drops. And at first I
Yeah.
thought, well, is it possible that the wiring on the tank from gray to black was crossed? And no, it wasn't. So we were able to prove that theory. I wrote it up and I gave it to the customer. And then with every inspection, I always do a pre-interview. I do the inspection. I give them notification that I'm on site. I give them a notification that it's done. I like to review the report quickly, before I send it off because all my reports, technology provided that technology is in my favor today. Then I will send off the report same day and give them an hour or two to look it over. And then I call them up. I'm like, oh, so let's discuss what our findings are. Now, in the body of the report, if I have their permission, because I work for them, I don't work for anybody else. I don't work for a dealership. I don't work for the buyer. I don't work for the seller. If it's a dealership, a lot of times I'm like, you know what? I'd like your permission to give them a punch list. If you've put a deposit down and you know that you're going to buy this rig and you're obligated to buy it, I'd like to give them a punch list so that they can, at the end of the day, a handwritten list and say, here's what you need to start working on. It's plumbed backwards. There's no way to drain the tanks. The toilet leaks. The sealant's bad, and the list goes on and on and on. And they're pretty appreciative. And most dealerships will put a technician on it that day or the next day because by the time I'm done, it's probably 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And so they will put a technician on it the next day or so. And then what they do is they just push their delivery date back a day or two until they can get everything figured out. And I always tell my customer, trust but verify. So you've got the punch list, you know everything that's wrong with it, and you make the dealership prove to you that this item is now able to be checked off your list. Do not settle for them saying, oh, just take it to service department and they'll take care of it. No, no, no. Once you take it off the lot, you are at the
Yeah.
mercy of the service department. You'll call them up and you're like, hey, I want to bring it in for warranty repair. And they're going to say, okay, well, we'll see you in 6 weeks. So, and then it'll sit on the lot for an absorbent amount of time. The minimum of 2 to 3 weeks while they negotiate with a manufacturer, and then they make the determination what's going to be covered, what's not going to be covered, and then do they have parts? If they've got the wrong parts, then there's another shipment, and it's this whole big ordeal. Versus if you say, I'm not going to accept this rig until it meets my satisfaction. Once you're satisfied and you've trust and verified that everything has occurred, go forth and do good things and see the world, or well, actually the United States, Mexico and Canada. Throw those in there too.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because I think a lot of times people who are new to RVing, their only experience is car buying,
Mm-hmm.
and the industries are so different, and the
Yes.
quality control and the workmanship. I tell people that, you know, cars are put together with robotic precision.
Mm-hmm.
RVs are put together by hand
Yes.
by people who may be skilled at what they're doing or may not.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's Friday and they're hungover. I mean, who knows, right?
Mm-hmm.
And each um, factory probably has varying degrees of quality control. So I think it's important that they manage their expectations and be
Mm-hmm.
aware of how it is
Yes.
so that they can have a better outcome,
Yes.
even with a
Very
new
much so.
rig, like you've explained.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think people don't realize that they're all handmade, you
Yeah,
know,
you're absolutely
and
right.
and it's not electricians that are running the electrical,
No,
right?
no,
So that's why
it's
I'll see people post pictures of the spaghetti mess of the electrical system
mm-hmm.
behind the wall,
Yeah.
in the pass through and that. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that guy, they're just a minimum wage assembly worker. And
yeah,
I've got a customer who is from the automotive industry, and he's just appalled. He's
yeah,
like, I can't believe that, that I can't get my rig back the same day or next day. I'm like, well,
yeah,
yeah, that's,
yeah,
I can't believe. I'm like, because there is a night and day difference between the automotive
Yeah.
industry and the RV industry, big time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, we want to research our rigs and buy a quality rig. And I think it's just as important to research the dealership
Yes,
as well,
absolutely. Yep.
because there's just, it runs the whole gamut of the integrity and of the level of customer service.
Yes, very much so. I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of those mom and pop dealerships. So
Yeah, definitely. RV Advisors offers weekly, customized one-on-one consulting services. Our mission is to provide information that will help save you money, save you time, and get you on the road with confidence by shortening the big learning curve associated with RVing. You don't know what you don't know, so let us help you navigate this process and avoid common costly mistakes. We're passionate about RVing and helping you to have the best RVing experience possible. Whether you choose our 8-week, 3 or 6-month package, it will be tailored to your specific needs and meet you where you are on this exciting journey. So reach out via email to Kathy@rvadvisors.net or on Facebook direct messaging for details on our programs. Thank you for joining me this week for the All Things RV podcast, featuring part 1 of my guest Patrick Stiltner, NRVIA Certified RV Inspector and Repair Technician. Don't miss next week's podcast for part 2 of my interview with Patrick. There's still more great information to come. Please see the show notes down below for Patrick's contact information and website. Wishing you amazing adventures, safe travels, and I hope to see you on the road.